Forget about 9/11. It's flat. They're flying perpendicular to sea level at a flight level that's called out by ground control, who monitor them on radar that's flat. The miles that are used for the distances are flat. Everything about flying requires Earth to be flat. The measurements and the deviations with respect to those measurements, the altitude acquisitions that are called out from ground control are all referenced to sea level, right? There's no getting away from how flat flight is. But if you can make flat Earth suddenly be about whether or not planes existed at all on 9/11, you're like, okay, well, that's nothing to do with the subject, is it? When certain individuals hear the terminology flat Earth, they relate to it in the way that it's been peddled out into the masses. Now that is to create a community called flat earthers that are generally speaking conspiratorial in nature, that aren't focused on Earth measurements, and juxtapose them or put them in opposition to people who have inserted a high degree of value upon measurements of a flat Earth that extrapolate out into heliocentrism, so that they can believe that there's a sky vacuum or that the ground's curving away, producing a tangent point below the measured flat surface level or whatever, right? When those two groups can be put in opposition to one another, you can have the fart-sniffing dweebs come out as the intellectually more superior in the mind's eye of the average audience member, and the flat earther be perceived to be a conspiratorial guy who's talking about a conspiratorial subject, because the world not being spherical is a conspiratorial subject if the consensus believes that the world is spherical. You can juxtapose it in opposition to the obviously accepted to be sphericity of Earth's surface, and how certain people who call themselves flat earthers say Earth's not spherical, like we all know it is. That's how they create the idea of flat Earth being a conspiracy. Now that can then operate in isolation over here to people who actually measure Earth, people who are flying planes, making maps, measuring the deviation in the altitude with respect to sea level, measuring sea level itself, measuring earthquakes, measuring anything to do with Earth's surface in any respect, because they all absolutely require at a fundamental level that Earth be flat. That's how it's being measured. Any deviation from its flatness will be described from the flat measurements of the flat miles that you can describe a deviation from. Ergo, the principles and axioms that are used in Earth measurement are and can only be flat, but you can't have people who want the world to be believed to be spherical have any association with the idea of something different to how Earth is measured. So Earth being measured in linear distance, parallel to an eye level, for example, doesn't include the words flat Earth. So you can have that segregated over here and set in opposition